Next up on the tee, he has a golf brand called the Country Club Confidential. He's collecting all of the best gossip and tales from golf clubs, and he's on joining us. We've got Scott from the Country Club Confidential on the show. How you doing this evening?
If that is my actual name, I'm doing well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining us. A little bit of anonymity for our YouTube audience. So we're going to keep the mystery alive as we go through some of these fascinating, scintillating stories from the Country Club experience and all the content that you've collected in the past 18 months since starting the newsletter. But before that, Scott, what was your background in golf and how much experience in the game do you have specifically?
So I was one of those former college baseball players that sort of found their way into golf. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then through the years, obviously, that's a normal, I think, process, at least with a lot of guys. I just got into playing and, you still have that competitive nature in you and you can't go and do the things you used to do in other sports, but golf allows you to do it, deep into your retirement years. So that's my relationship with golf has been that. And just really friendship and stories, obviously, which we'll get into, just sort of the nature of the game and the camaraderie and everything that comes with it. So it's really become, a favorite pastime, replacing, the other favorite pastime.
Definitely, yeah. And there's a couple of different uniquely important sides to the game of golf. There is the aspect of publicly available golf and private membership country club golf as well too. I've got a little bit of experience of both. I was never a country club family, but I played high school golf at a course that was the private country club in town. So I saw a lot of the country club dynamics when I was younger. Full circle, I now work part-time at a country club. So I see a little bit of the dynamics now as well too. So it's great having you on to tell these stories. But in terms of the public versus private golf experience, what's your context with both sides of the coins?
That's a great question. So I, like you, did not grow up on a country club. I didn't really play golf much as a kid. It's more for a football, baseball kid. But through the years, then moved into public golf. And it's interesting because, the journey, I always remembered sort of the first time I'd go to a pro shop, even at a muni course, it's a little intimidating. You go in and the starters kind of, you're supposed to know a lot of things that you might not know when you're new to the game. So, I went all the way from that to then now being a member at a club and sort of, again, all those unwritten rules and things that you learn through the years about the club life versus the, sort of public golf life. And there's a pretty wide chasm there. And it depends on the club. You start going to some of these top 100 clubs and stuff. There's definitely expectations that you need to know before you set foot on those properties, as opposed to going to just your local public course and having a good time with the guys. But there's a wide range of things, which reminds me of a story we did, which we'll get into later. So.
Oh, yeah. There's lots of stories indeed. So we'll get into them now with ccconfidential.vip for a taste of Scott and the writing that comes from these amazing stories from country club life. When did it dawn on you for this to actually become content and write these stories and get the newsletter going?
A friend of mine who's in the golf industry, I had done another project and he had seen it and was like, I didn't know you were a writer. And I've always wanted him to do this newsletter and kind of had a concept of what the idea was. The way he explained it was golf stories. And, I thought he meant more just like on the course stuff, which is, it's sort of one of those things when someone's telling you about their round, you're just like looking at your watch, like, all right, we done with this. That's kind of what I thought he meant. And then in thinking about it, he sort of alluded more that it's like in the card room after and this. I'm like, oh. And then at one point, as I thought about it, the name Country Club Confidential came to me, and that was when it's like right away locked in. And I always picture in my head when I'm writing, I'm like Danny DeVito and LA Confidential. Ray does, he's doing that whole little,
yes.
That's kind of how every story starts, with that gossipy, 50s sort of Hollywood gossip tone. It's sort of, that's part of how we write them. And then it's just, we always joke modern day, it's like TMZ for private clubs, but we change the names to protect the guilty. So we do anonymize everything. We're not out to get anyone in trouble, but there's these great stories out there that get told, and, we feel like the world should get to hear them.
I love that. I'm a fiend for TMZ. One of my guiltiest pleasures is the celebrity gossip circuit. So I now understand why I'm loving this content so much. Let's get into some of the stories specifically. One that I picked out, I believe it's one of the first, if not the first stories that you posted. And it was specifically regarding a member at a private course. He was kind of taking advantage of a unique period at the beginning of his membership, and it forced the club to kind of change their policy. Explain how this guy kind of bilked and swindled his way into some country club lifestyle without footing the bill at the end.
Yeah, this is a crazy story. And you were right. This was our very first story. We called it "How to Steal $20,000 from a Country Club and Get Away with It." And so, what happened here? This guy, just basically your kind of con man, right? It was pre-COVID, so the clubs at that time, weren't all oversubscribed like they are now, and they would have different sorts of promotions to increase membership. If they had 20 open spots, obviously there's there's a need for that. So this particular club had created this preview program where you could come in for 2 months and sort of quote test out the club and just pay dues and see how it feels. And the club is supposed to be able to kind of monitor you monitor the club, and there's different clubs that sell versions of this, but it was early days of that model for this club. And so they didn't run a detailed background check. They didn't do a lot of things that they should have done. And one thing they really should have done, and a lot of these private clubs, for those that don't know, if you're a member in a club, you've paid your big initiation, you pay your dues every month, you can go and just get cash against your account, right? So it's like, if you're like, hey, and again, this is when cash was more prevalent. I'm going to go downtown to see a baseball game or whatever, right? Can you just give me like $300 against my account? And then you just pay it on your bill. So
wow. Okay.
Front yourself cash, right? So this guy realized he could do that as a preview member who had never paid down a deposit, had never even made his first month's payment. So he starts just going, but he's a charming guy, right? So he looks the part. He just drives a Ferrari. He's got all the like fancy golf clothes, the new bag.
Really selling it well.
Just really selling it. And he's a hustler, right? So everyone he's tipping the staff out real well. So people don't really have a reason to, they're like, all right, it's taking care of me. What do I care? So anyways, and he's buying dinners and drinks for everyone because it's on an account he's never going to pay the tap on, So, but no one knows that at the time. So he goes and he, just goes and on a spending spree. And then, he'll just go to the thing every so often. Oh, can I get, a few $100 against my account? I got to pay off some bets in the card room, whatever, right? Had a rough time on the course. I owe a few guys some money. Can I get $300? I got to pay some guys off? Sure, whatever, So that he just did that. And so he does this for a month. And then of course the first month the bill comes due and he's, you're supposed to set up or pay it. He's like, oh, I'm having some ACH issues with my bank. Just stalling, delaying.
Of course, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the club just didn't really sniff the rat out just yet. And so again, then the second month comes and it's like he's been continuing this. Someone starts to notice on the finance committee or whatever. And, then they're like, okay, well, it's the 2 months are over. You want to pay and the guy's just in the wind. Like to call the number, let's go in like dead phone line, go to the address he gave. It's like some old man answers the door. It's just a bum address. Social doesn't come back to anything. So, the guy completely just took the club. And again, so it wasn't that he took 20 grand in cash, but all the dinners, everything that he spent, the club had to eat the whole thing. So, it was pretty wild. And then they go, well, who sponsored this guy, right? And it turns out that the member that had sponsored him met him at a local muni on the driving range and was doing it to get like the $500 pro shop credit for referring a new member or something like that was literally the motivation. So it's just bad incentives misaligned with, what a club's supposed to be, but great story. And it was just like, and then the little postscript is that apparently through the grapevine, he had pulled off similar scams after that. So he went to some of the clubs, I think somewhere out in like the Palm Springs area. I think he got a club out there. Then went out somewhere, I don't know, out of state or whatever. It's pretty wild. So anyways, it's just con men are going to con, So.
One's a criminal, always a criminal with a guy like that right there.
Jeez, imagine if he's put that to good use, but anyway.
Yeah, and the desperate need for pro shop credit. We had our buddy Yip Strickler on the show recently as well too, and he's diatribed how important it is to win that pro shop credit at all costs. So you got to get
that pro shop credit. Yeah, exactly. No, I actually saw that appearance. He's a great guy. We've had some interaction with him.
Very cool. So these stories, that was the start of it. You're getting a bunch more, and they go all up on ccconfidential.vip. How are you collecting and getting them all? You're based in the West Coast, or are you finding some or all these, or are they getting sent your way?
So the stories, they come to us from a lot of different places. Mostly though, it's been amazing. We've been able to go 18 months and it's pretty much been just me talking to people. I get around and talk to folks and
wow.
I play a member guest. I'll ask around. I think 6 of the stories have come from my home club. So that's validation that if there's thousands of clubs all over the country and even the world, and 6 can come from one club and more are probably still to come, then we can definitely, I think that this can go on for a long time. And so we just did a appearance on a pretty big podcast a week ago, which led to a big influx of new subscribers and also new stories, which has been great. So actually the stories we're writing this week, next week, and probably the week after are going to come from submissions that we got from that podcast appearance, which is really great. So, I mean, the bigger we get, I think the more stories we're going to have to choose from, and it's just going to be a lot more fun. So.
And then right on that website, there's just a spot where people who are checking it out right now, if they want to submit a story to you, they can, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can go to the website. And you can also, if you subscribe to the newsletter at the end of it's a weekly story we send every Thursday. Down at the bottom, there's a little link where it's, if you want to tell us a story, you can just share your story there. And we love getting those because, I mean, there's been, they're not always, ones that we're going to run, but when they are, it's awesome. It's just great to hear a good story. So.
Nice. All right. There's a couple I wanted to headline as well, too, while we have you on right here. And there's always a story of members on members. There's always interesting little gossipy wars between members. This one I found very interesting because a member was getting revenge on another member because he felt slighted for something that was seemingly very innocuous. And he decided to take it out in a very interesting way. Explain this to our audience.
All right. So this one is crazy because for those that don't know about the index and everything, there's a member, he's about a 16 handicap, right? So if you're out playing betting, you're playing to that number. And so there's the sandbagger who will try to have a higher index, of course. And then there's the vanity index, somebody who's going to lose a lot of money because they're giving themselves putts and stuff and scoring lower than they should. So in the, most clubs, you want to kind of keep your index honest, of course, but also higher is better. So someone was going on this guy's gin and putting in scores that were much lower, like a 72 from the blacks, right? So, and they were just every week or so, they were just going and doing it. And the guy had no idea who was doing it. He just realizes it one day. He goes to play with his buddies. He's like, "What's your index?" "I'm a 16. He's like, "No, you're not. You're 12. He's like, "What?" And then he goes and looks, and the score had been posted and brought him way down. So this was just going on. He'd have to go to the pro shop, correct it. The pro shop would have to go in, back it out, do all that. And then what ends up happening was, because it just kept happening systematically, there was a pool that got started in the card room of like, the guy's like, "This isn't funny anymore. Who's doing this?" Right. So and so there's literally a betting pool of like, who are the suspects, who's, maybe mad at this guy or whatever. And anyways, it ends up, one of our retired members decides to sort of take the case. He was a former fire chief. And so he goes and he gets, starts tracking, trying to figure this out. He's like, "Well, look, these are being posted in the men's locker room because there's a thing there. And that's where you can go and just put in your last name."
There's our first lead.
Right. And then he goes, "Well, these are time stamped and there's cameras here, so we can figure out exactly who did this." It wasn't even that hard of a case to crack. So they go and they figure out who it was, which is when I heard about the story. So this particular guy, this is actually in a club that I remember. This is one of the 6 I was mentioning. And so he comes up to me on my way to the driving range and says, "Hey, I got a story for you." It's like, this crazy thing happened. And, I'm like, "All right, well," he starts to tell me, he's like, "I don't know the end of it yet." So they were in investigations, but he didn't even know who was doing it. So as this developed, what ends up happening was the guy that they found doing it, first of all, he denied it, which is hilarious because we have it on film, but it wasn't even a golf member. So this club has a social membership too, with the pool and all the events, like 4th of July events and all that stuff, right? So you can be a social member and have dinner and stuff, but you can't play golf on the course. And many of them aren't even golfers. And you definitely can't post like for yourself or anyone else.
Yeah, so, right.
This guy, but it's amazing that he even knew to do it because he wasn't a golfer, but he must have heard somewhere. So he wanted to get revenge. So it was a social member who had been asked this particular guy sometime in the winter to be on his bocce team. And the guy's like, "Yeah, sure." And then totally forgot about it. And then 6 months goes by, the bocce season comes up. Didn't go like, "Hey man, I was supposed to be on your bocce team." Just doesn't say a word about it and decides to exact revenge by posting low scores on his index to get even with him. So I mean, it's just the wildest thing. It's such a crazy revenge. And so, and again, the funny part was the guys in the card room, no one even really knew this guy because this particular guy hang out at the pool, the golf member, knew the guy from the pool or something from like years ago. And I mean, they weren't like friends at all. So it's just such a weird thing to do. So of course the guy had to go before the board and all that. They were going to give him some really long suspension, needed the right thing to resign because, whatever, but it was just a really random thing. So that was one of the stranger. And, that was, I think, one of our favorite titles. It was the Gin Reaper was what we titled that story. So
yes. Yeah. Your stories are very well titled as well, too. And it just could have been literally one sentence of conversation could have avoided that entire drama right there.
Totally. It's so weird. But, again, these clubs, that's what's the beauty of these people. You put all these people together in a social situation and you're going to get things like this. So.
And there's a lot of tradition in the country club circuit as well, too. I want to show you a clip from a recent podcast that got some really good traction on social media because we love the 19th hole traditions and old school country club traditions. And you don't hear about many of them at some of these uber private clubs where there's only small amounts of memberships. We recently had a guy named Large from Barstool Sports on the podcast in the last month or two. and he's got a lot of experience in New York City Wall Street culture. So he's gotten invited to lots of clubs in the New York City area, and he told this really awesome story about a country club in the Long Island area.
Their first hole, maybe first two holes, I don't remember, kind of goes into the golf course proper when it becomes tree lined. So as we're playing there on a summer day, I didn't know, but when we got up to the second or third tee, the foursome in front of us, it's all these old fat guys. They took their shirts off. I didn't know members did that. And that's how they get their sun. So it's like you have 50, 60, 70-year-old guys, tits out for the lads playing their, and then you go to the bar afterwards, you have to wear a jacket. So these guys will step out of the shower, wrap a towel around their waist, put on their sports coat, and then go over to the bar. Reggie Jackson shows up in cargo shorts, and they're like, sorry, Mr. Jackson, no cargo shorts. You're going to have to get the fuck out of here. But meanwhile, I'm playing with this half-naked guy, and then I'm drinking with this other half-naked guy at the end.
I thought you'd appreciate that little clip about the country club culture.
That is so funny because I heard a version of that, I think, from someone else. And maybe they saw it on your podcast, but someone was telling me something about this place where, it's just like nudity and just random, and it's the East Coast. So it had to be that story. That's amazing.
And actress Susan Lucci, I learned in the comments, actress Susan Lucci has a home on the property of that course and actually leaves a cooler of drinks out for some of the members as well, too, that drive by her yard. How about that one for a little doozy?
It's wild. I love that. Yeah, we'll probably have to do some version of that soon. I think that's we'll do a little more hunting for a few more details, but that's great. That's just it's amazing. I mean, you have you have gates and hedges and walls, and you can sort of do whatever you want behind them. I mean, and most people just play golf, but there's other things that happen, obviously. So.
I'm sure you've seen a lot in your days and years playing the game and going to these different clubs. What's an example off the top of your head about an interesting kind of tradition or very old school thing or very, unique to this place type of tradition you've seen in a country club before?
That's a good question. Gosh, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that unless, give me a little more of a prompt. Like what's the thing like what you've seen or something? I'm going to turn the question back around on you.
Obviously there's crazy old school policies at that club in Long Island. They were telling stories in the comments about how female paramedics weren't allowed into the club during an emergency.
I've heard that one. Yeah, that was the one where the guy had a heart attack.
That shows you how old school some of these places are.
No, the guy had a heart attack and he couldn't go. It was a female doctor or something arrived on the scene and they wouldn't let her inside the gates. The story that I heard, at least, was the guy already died or it could have definitely been saved if they just let her in. But it's like, sorry, ma'am. That's a DC area club, I believe. But gosh, there's so many, I think, just like weird nuances at every club. Like any of the clubs where you're in, let's say, like the Southern California area, but you have to wear pants. It just doesn't make sense. It's just like, it's torture. Like you have to wear pants still in this day and age. It's like, maybe you could say if the temperature, you have to wear pants unless it's 100 degrees. Like then, I think that would be fair, but it's like, they're not budging on some of this stuff. So, but then again, those traditions, it's their right? A club can do what they want. And if the members all want to do it or whatever, then God bless, it's like, I think we're seeing, there's always been this, but you have the different tiers of clubs and all that, right? You get your mid tier, this, that, the club that's kind of a part country club, part public and all that. And just the mix of what that is and what that means. Actually, it was a story I think I thought of that I was going to mention to you. So, all of our stories are from a story or something we heard, but of course we, on occasion, will embellish or do things to make it a better story, right? One of them, though, was this one is one that was just sort of brought out of an idea. So this was early, but we called it Muni Day. And I always thought this would be funny, but I knew our club would never go for it. Maybe, God bless, if some club out there does go for this, I would love to see it and have Muni Day, right? So it's a country club that has Muni Day where cutoff jeans are encouraged and bring your own beer. And just like go in and let's do it. Let's do Muni Day at a club. And so I wrote up the story, and of course it goes horribly wrong, and all kinds of shenanigans. And that was sort of just a fun one to write up. But I mostly wrote it because I would love to see a club do that. I know ours wouldn't, and I probably most of the ones around town. But someday, I want to hear about a country club that does a Muni Day where it's like shirts untucked, hats in any room you want. Like just all of the country club rules are thrown out the window for one day. See what happens. That, obviously, like no carts on the greens, things like that, but that might end up happening. But I think it would just be hilarious, just see what the members come up with to cut loose for one day. And it would, of course, probably end in disaster, which is why no one would want to do it. But maybe there's a club out there that's willing to take a chance on it for the story. And if that ever does happen, and God bless if someone can make it happen, please let us know. We want to be able to record what happened that day.
Nice. Love that. Awesome indeed. Scott here from Country Club Confidential, ccconfidential.vip to check out the newsletter content and his very creatively written stories as well too. One more I wanted to touch on before we get to some fun 19th hole questions, specifically as a policy surrounding one of the most famous courses in the world, probably. It's Cypress Point out in California. And apparently they have a policy which allows a person who is dead to host golfers there. Explain how that works.
Well, that's not the policy, but they do allow unaccompanied guests, and this was this is what allowed this to happen. So this was told to me directly as one of our earlier stories, and it's crazy. I was with a group of guys talking about, a group of older guys were sort of swapping some stories, and Cypress came up, and I said, has anyone here played there? And a guy says, yeah, he said, I played there actually twice, and then this is a kicker. Both times I was a guest of a dead guy. I was like, what? How? What? Yeah. So he proceeds to tell the story, and it was this individual was in the Los Angeles area, so a lot of Cypress members are from all over the country, right? And they don't really have, they don't interact a lot with each other. It's not a club, and that a lot of times people are flying in from all over, and it's not really a club in that sense. So this is how this could happen, and it's the 80s, and it was a guy that had the membership. His company was like a bond trader or something, and his company paid the dues, right? But the guy didn't ever like take people out. He's pretty selfish with it. Maybe once in a while I might take a buddy, but he definitely wasn't taking clients out or anything like that. So this guy, bond trader in the 80s, ends up dropping dead of a heart attack, right? So the company he worked for just decided, hey, we're not gonna we'll just keep paying the dues. Let's get the oldest guy in the office to call up to Cypress and start, I got some guys I want to send out, right? So the guy, let's send a few guys up, whatever, right? So they would just take guests. So they were sending out their clients, their top clients. And this guy was on that list of people that was a client of this pawn shop. And so him and other guys, he said, yeah, we would just go up and we'd just be like, yeah, we're guests of so-and-so. And they let them on, they go play around and have a great day. The whole thing was on the company, so there's just whatever they ordered, drink, whatever, and typicalities, of course. And so this went on for 2 years. For 2 years, they pulled this off. And then finally, I think Cypress figured we haven't seen old Bill or whatever in a long time. And so they decide to call home, and his wife picks up and informs them that he's been passed for 2 years. And so of course, quickly, shut off the membership and, no longer build the company. But they got away with that for 2 years, which is just wild, right? To be able to do that. And to play a course like that as the guest of a dead guy. So yeah, that one we called Heaven's Guest, which was a fun story. So
yeah, the end of an era there. God, I wish they could have kept that policy alive.
Oh, I mean, it's just only in the 80s, right? I mean, the stuff you could do when it was just a few beepers and no cell phones and no GPS trackers, right? I mean, yeah, what
good times. Awesome. All right, let's do some 19th hole quick shot questions here. Your content on Instagram is a fun follow as well too. Love seeing everything you do there for social regarding the club experience as well too. Tell me a little bit about your favorites in the golf world though. Do you have any favorite tour players that you enjoy following or tour players that you enjoy watching swing the club these days from professional circuit?
I mean, yeah, I love the Bombers. Obviously, who doesn't, right? It's like home run hitters in baseball. So, and it was great watching Cam Young win and just smash that ball. It was like 375 down the middle on the 18th hole to win a tournament. So that was great. And yeah, I mean, guys, look, I like Spieth when he was hot. It was a great run. When it'd be good to see him kind of get back. Morikawa's a guy that's from an area that I'm from and have family from. So it's really fun watching him succeed as well. And yeah, I mean, just it's great seeing. It feels like when Liv launched, there was a sort of big diversion there, and it feels like it's coming back to kind of PGA that we all remember, and especially with Brooks coming back, and hopefully they get that figured out in the next couple of years, and it gets back to what it used to be, and unify the best players.
Yeah, well said, indeed. In terms of country club experiences, I'm curious, let's go inside the actual clubhouse specifically. Do you have a notable clubhouse experience? Think about a course where we're really not even talking about the green grass itself. When you get into the 19th hole and you get in the clubhouse, you walk in and say, wow, this is a structure right here. I had one opportunity to go into the newer TPC Sawgrass clubhouse, which we just saw last week at the Players. And that's just an unbelievable property. But what's one notable that stuck out to you in your travels?
This one's kind of random, but it was just amazing. It was a club over by, we did Pinehurst trip, and the place we were staying, there's like a church right in the middle of Pinehurst that you can actually Airbnb. It's a really cool spot. You put like 8 guys in there or whatever. And it's this old church they converted into an Airbnb, and it's literally in the middle of the circle there. So we, played a few courses around there, and then somehow through that we were able to get on one of the clubs out there called Forest Creek. And so it's got 36 holes. It's a really great course. But the clubhouse, I guess they just redone it. It was old kind of feeling, like woodsy. It was just that stands out when you ask that question. I mean, I don't know how to really describe it, but it would just be that, like, what you would picture, like just a really classic old school country clubhouse kind of feel when you walk in. And it was that. I mean, if you could take that and replicate it at any club in America, they would probably say, okay, yeah, we'll take that, and it was really cool. So I don't know. It's a random one. But shout out to Forest Creek Country Club. It's an awesome spot. If you ever get a chance to play there, I highly recommend it.
No, love that indeed. In terms of degeneracy, I love to place a wager maybe on the golf course or on whatever game's going on tonight. And there's a lot of that going on in the country club atmosphere. I'm curious, do you have stories out right now on the newsletter, or do you have any memories yourself of like card rooms, gambling caves, and clubhouses? Because I know those have been a fixture of lots of 19th hole structures in the world of golf.
Yeah, there are. One that we are going to maybe work into something soon. There's a well-known place that apparently the story is they have a vault with $4 million in cash in it at all times that's there to settle up large bets with well-known people that go and play there. So that's an interesting one. And just, the cash games, so we wrote up, we actually had a part 1 and 2 of Bandits in the Bushes, which was like members that were, the first story was at a club where they, some people had on a par 3 where you leave your bags and walk over to hit a shot and there's a kind of a blind spot for you, where people definitely inside jobs that would know the guys that played cash games and had money. Right. So that, someone else told me a story recently when I mentioned those two, about, this was in the Palm Springs area, a well-known large cash game where the way they like to play it, some guys just like this, is like whip out the cash and pay it every hole. So it's not just we'll settle up after the round, it's every hole. We're going to like settle up $1,000 here, $1,000, whatever. So that's how they played it. And they literally had someone that was paid to just come with them, like not even a caddy, they were carrying the bag, like they had the bag of cash. And so in that one, and we haven't written this one up yet, but apparently this was just told me that a car pulls up near wherever there's a fence, and hop the fence, guns drawn, rob the bag, and like off they went. And I don't know if they got caught or whatever, but I mean, they just jack. It's like, in like the mafia, like in Sopranos, when you like rob the card game or whatever, right? It's like, that's the equivalent in golf. They like rob the big money game, which is just, it's crazy. So yeah, that story. And then the only other one that this is a large cash thing too. We wrote a story called Trafficking Jam. And this one came to us from a head pro down on a border club, like down on the US Mexico border. And so apparently on a Monday when they were closed, there was, they were told by someone that, no, you're going to be open this Monday. We got some guests that are coming up, and it was some cartel guys. And because this is a situation where the pro kind of had to let it happen, right? So these guys come up and they've got like, caddies with like machine guns and stuff, and they're playing they go out and they very gentlemanly, man, they're dressed appropriate, fixing their divots, the whole nines, right? These guys go play this crazy match. And then according to the guy, like at the end, these two vans pull up, and then just these like duffel bag of cash gets thrown from one end to the other. And that's how they settled up the bet. So, I mean, just wild. And so, in our story, this, I don't know that this happened, but like I mentioned, we kind of put a little kicker there. So it was that the head pro, his office is locked the whole day, and then he goes in there and there's a little note that says thanks with like $20K cash in it, which, I don't think that just makes it a better story, I think. So, we debated at our little poll question, what should the pro have done? Report to the IRS, don't say a word to anyone, right? Whatever. And so, I mean, that's where we have a little fun with the stories. But the part about the cartel guys coming, playing a match, machine guns, and settling up with duffel bags from one van to the other is 100% true. So it's all pretty real stuff, man. Isn't it?
Very cool. It's the scandalous world of golf told through the Country Club Confidential.
Yeah. It's not all just, Winthrop the Third and, stuffy. There's a lot of kinds of stuff that happens.
Nice. All right, we wrap with the 19th hole question. So you get into the clubhouse after the day at your favorite club. It's time to order, though. What's your meal and your drink order at the 19th hole?
Oh, hot wings and a beer, man. I mean, for me, it's just like, because and that's a good like indication of the club if they have the hot wings or whatever. But I mean, that just feels right to me. Let's just keep it. And hopefully there's a ball game on. I can watch, half of before I go home, and then try to pretend I didn't have that beer.
Random question. I work in the 19th hole and I see weird orders sometimes. I saw a guy order sour cream for his dipping sauce for wings. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's like, that I feel like Pulp Fiction right now, like French fries and mayonnaise. Like, oh, no, I'm not having that. No way. You thought it was potato.
It's unbelievable what people order, man. I see it all. So
I can imagine. Yeah, well, that's crazy. Yeah, that sounds like its own little something of just like, weird combinations of food that people order in restaurants. That'd be that'd be a great Instagram account.
Yep. Follow here for that indeed. And follow Country Club Confidential. Scott, appreciate you hopping on and telling these stories. And best of luck with the future of the newsletter as well, too.
Really appreciate that. Thanks so much, Alex.